Okay, excellent. Okay, so yeah, so we're throwing backwards. Good. So when we do vibrato, so let's try this. We're going to do without our bows first. And we're going to do the slowest and kind of silliest vibrato that we can do. So pick the finger that you find the easiest to do vibrato on. For most people, that's first finger or second finger. And for most people, that's in like the first position, either on the A or the D strings. But wherever you feel that vibrato is the easiest for you, that's where we're going to start. And what we're going to do is we're going to pluck the note. So for me, it's going to be an F. And we're going to make a really slow oscillation backwards. And it's going to make this sound kind of like a sad cat. Wow, backwards. So you're trying to get the note to be a little flat, like this. Bam. Good. While you're doing this, again, kind of an ongoing theme is, what is your thumb doing? Don't allow the thumb to squeeze in any way. Good. Now try that a little bit faster and try oscillating in both directions. So you're not just oscillating backwards, you're oscillating forwards as well. So you get this wow, wow, wow. And you want your oscillation in the hand to be as wide as you can possibly go. Right? So you're going to really exaggerate how far you're going back and how far you're going forward, like that. So at its extreme, this is our slowest and widest vibrato, and it's also kind of a sound effect. I've used this sound effect in lots of different types of music, improvised styles mostly. This is your slowest vibrato. Now, in contrast, your fastest vibrato is when you shake your hand really, really fast. Right? And you get this almost like crazy sound. So, see if you can get your hand to shake as fast as it can. If you find that you can't get it to move fast, there's a couple experiments that you can do. You can experiment with the height of your arm. So often a fast vibrato doesn't work very well if the arm is too low. So you can try popping it up a little bit. See if that helps a bit. Yeah. And while you're doing this, you're trying to connect to the feeling in the top of your arm and your back. So it's like the vibrato is actually coming from back here and not so much the hand. Good. Okay, so we're going to pick up our bows. We're going to see what that sounds like if we play with the bows. So we're going to do the slowest, widest first, and then the fastest, okay? So slowest, widest. You'll notice with the slowest, widest, what's going on with my left elbow. It's coming back all the way forward, as back as I can go. Almost like make circles with your arm. And then the fastest. See how fast you can get it. Right, so that's what I would call the two extremes of our vibrato. Then we have everything in between, and those are all the different colors or spices. And I find that the best way to go about kind of developing your ability to control that is to put on a rhythm. So like a metronome, if you don't mind practicing with a metronome, or a fun beat with a keyboard or something, and trying to get your vibrato to rhythmically match up with the rhythm. So let's say you're doing quarter notes like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, just like that. And you would try it at all different speeds. You can start slow and move to fast, or you can start fast and move to slow. And you're going to find that the more you're able to play with certain speeds, the more control you'll have over your vibrato. And then when you come to a piece of music, all you have to do is make a choice about what kind of vibrato. A general trend for me, I find in classical music, is that the softer you're playing, so if you're playing a pianissimo, like really, 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 really quiet, but you still want your sound to project, that's when you would use the really fast vibrato. Because you can be very quiet, but still get a nice projecting sound. Right? Really, really fast. And then if you're playing really loudly, that's when you might use a more wide vibrato because you don't need quite as much projection. And I'm just going to take a second because I think there might be somebody else in our waiting room. I saw some movement. Let's just take a second. Oh, no, I think we're okay. Okay. So yeah, so the freedom aspect of this, and how do you kind of make this your own? Again, you can kind of play around with creating something that's really fun for you to play. So I find making those wow, wow, wow sound effects can be really fun. So I would try playing something where I move from finger to finger, right, all over the fingerboard with the slowest, silliest vibrato ever. Let's try that. So we're going to kind of do the same as we did with our last exercise. We're going to try moving all over your fingerboard, but each time you're going to use a really slow, wide vibrato. It's going to make very strange sound. Cognizant of what your thumb is doing. You'll probably find that at different times the thumb's like all of a sudden, oh, grip. This is why, I need to grip now. So just be aware that your thumb is wanting to do that, and you just kind of need to remind it. And you might need to remind it constantly. I still have to remind my thumb all the time just to chill, because the thumb does not want to chill. It never wants to chill. It always wants to grip. So you just have to be reminding it all the time. Good. Okay. So the next topic is about our bow. How to tame your bow so that you can play faster and with more accuracy, especially across strings. So this is a question that came from the Midlife Cellist group that I'm part of. And a gentleman asked, how do I, so I'm able to cross strings at a certain speed, but then after a certain speed, it gets hard to do. So the first thing that I want to start with string crossings is just a basic concept, a foundation of how we get across from string to string. So a lot of people think you play a note, let's say you're playing on the G string, and you're going to move to the D string. What I see a lot of people do is lift their bow, put it on the D string, and then keep going. So they kind of lift between strings. Right? They're lifting, they're putting it back on. There's no way you can play fast like this. What you need is an efficient way to get from string to string. And the most efficient way is to think of your right elbow as a lever that's moving your bow up and moving your bow down. The whole thing is coming from the elbow. So it's coming down and it's coming up. And it's really good idea when you're practicing string crossings to watch your bow. So the first thing I like to do is find the balance point of your bow. So if you've ever balanced your bow on your fingers, you're going to find the spot where your bow will balance perfectly. It's the same weight over here as it is over here. This is where we're going to do our string crossings. This is just a really good place to start. The bow kind of responds really, really well here. It's also where we would be doing spiccato or bouncy bows. So we're going to do our string crossings here. We're going to start on the C string right at the balance point. And what I want you to do, we don't even need to play. You're just going to bring up your right elbow just enough until the bow pivots to the G string. And then I want you to take a second and feel the balance there. And then we're going to do the same thing to the next string. We're going to pivot just enough to get us to the next string. Okay, and then we'll just take a second to balance there. And then we're going to pivot again just enough to get us to the next string. So you'll notice here is that we use like zero energy. There was barely any movement here, getting from string to string. So we're going to try that again, but a little bit faster this time. Again, not making any sound. We're just going to kind of move rhythmically like this. So C, G, D, A. As little energy as possible. Try to watch your bow when you do it. And then back. A, D, G, C. And then let's see if we can do it quick. C, G, D, A, D, G, C. Good. Now we're going to try this higher in the bow. So that was like the balance point. We're going to try it kind of upper mid. We're going to try it here. It's going to feel totally different here. It's a little bit trickier to do string crossings here. But the same idea. Pivot your right elbow just enough to get you to the next string. Here you may notice that you feel more tension. Generally speaking, there'll be more tension in the forearm here. If you relax the fingers of your bow hold, that can help. Then over here. And then back and forth like this. Okay, so then when we come to play, we're making sound. We're going to try making sound with the tiniest little bows possible. So on the C string, we're just going to make a really short bow. Pivot. Right, and the bow is stuck to the string the whole time. You're just using your elbows. So it's down bow, pivot, up bow, pivot, down bow, pivot, up bow. And they should be kind of bitey little notes. And notice, you want to notice the balance on each string. So every time you get to a new string, don't move to the next one until you really feel the balance. And then back. Bow to get that bitey sound. So how do you go from that, which is like a relatively slow string crossing, to being able to go really, really fast? And the answer is it's the weight that's in your bow. If you have too much weight in your bow and you haven't lifted your elbow enough, you're not going to be able to cross the string accurately, and it's going to be slow. So what you need to do is you need a much lighter pressure to be able to come across the strings faster. So every time you're getting faster and you're trying to cross faster, you need to be lighter with the bow. And we can try that. The best way to try that is between two strings. So we're going to start on the G and the D. We're going to start with slow bow crossings, like we're doing, back and forth. And then we're gradually going to get faster. So we do like an accelerando. And as you get faster, I want you to lighten up your bow pressure. See how fast you get. And then slow it down again. And then really slow down. As you slow down, the bow's going to be heavier. Again, you're trying to maintain a really, really, really relaxed floppy wrist. Even though we have more weight going into the bow, don't be tempted with that more weight that you're putting into the bow to squeeze with the hand. The weight comes from the arm, not the hand. So let's try that activity one more time. We're going to start with really slow bows back and forth. Then we're going to start going faster. Lighten up the bow as you go faster. Very tiny bows, not a lot of bow. And then slow it back down. Right, so that's the foundation of how you get your bow to get faster. You would have to try this though, this activity, because obviously we're not just playing between the G and the D. You would have to make some creative activities where you're going between all the strings, right? So you might go between the D and the A, you might go between the C and the G, and then you might try activities where you skip from C to A. Obviously, these are our hardest string crossings, right? If we try that activity, let's try this. We're gonna go from C over to A, nice and slow, then try speeding that up, lightening up the bow. Eventually you get to a point where you're not going to be able to avoid the strings in between. right? And that's, luckily there's not a whole lot of repertoire where we're having to do this really, really, really fast, right? And we end up with this kind of sound where you hear the strings in between. Yeah, good. But as you get faster, the arm lightens up and stays really, really, really light. Okay, so yeah, so you can develop your own freedom exercises by basically just playing with the strings. I really strongly recommend that when you're trying to improve your string crossings, that you start with open strings, and then you can work to add fingers, right? And when you start adding fingers, you could add 1 finger, you could add 2. You'll notice that music, when you start doing that, it sounds like fiddle music, because a lot of fiddle music is this kind of stuff, right? We go back and forth, this kind of stuff. So you can add the fingers, but not until you feel really, really comfortable with the bow. So our very last topic, which is really fun, is how to use your bow for creative expression. So there's a few different flexibility exercises or experiments we can do here. One thing that I like to try, and it gives you really good control of your bow and is a lot of fun, is practicing doing crescendos and decrescendos within one bow. So basically you would put your bow, say, on at the frog, and then as you go along the bow, you're going to try to get louder, right? So that means you're going to increase the speed of the bow towards the end of the bow. So you're going to start really slow at the bottom of the bow, and then increase the loudness by increasing the speed and pressure towards the end of the bow. Make sure that your arm is fully relaxed when you do this. If you notice any pressure out by the tip, like we were talking about at the beginning of the workshop, try moving so that you can get rid of some of that tension at the end. Like this. Like that. Nice. Good. And now try it backwards. So that's a very natural sort of feeling, is the loud or quiet loud on the down bow. What's a little bit more counterintuitive, but sometimes we want to be able to do, is start quiet at the tip and get loud towards the frog, like this. So start at the tip. Yeah, feels weird, this one. We don't often do it, but it does happen. Like that. Good. Now, a little bit more counterintuitive is starting loud and getting quiet. So starting at the frog, you're going to start with a really loud accent and then try to lighten up the bow at the tip, like this. So totally make the sound disappear at the tip. You might just suspend your arm a little bit to do it. Nice. Good, and then do the same thing. Try to accent at the tip. An accent at the tip takes a lot of pressure at first, but then completely disappear at the frog. This is a tricky one. Nice. Good. So those are bow decrescendos and crescendos. You can try those on all the strings. Another really great way to kind of get creative with your bow is what I call wavy bows. And these are really great for getting to control your bow so that you can make the same sound along the length of it no matter where you are. So wavy bows, and there's actually pieces like Benjamin Britten has pieces where he uses this technique quite a bit. You're going to play a down bow, and then you're going to create waves in the bow like this. Pressure as you go along the bow. Yeah. And again, you can do this at different speeds. It can, as long as it's rhythmic, you can do faster. Strange sound, but I like it. I sometimes find people make that sound by accident, but if you could do it on purpose, that's the shaky bow sound. Shaky bow, like that. Good. Okay, so that's called wavy bows. Another thing I wanted to talk about with creative expression of your bow is how bow placement really affects like how you sound. So we have like, there's a myriad of places that you can put your bow. Between the fingerboard and the bridge, probably a lot of your teachers have talked about how if you play closer to the bridge, you're going to generally be louder. And if you play further away from the bridge, you're going to generally be quieter. One thing that sometimes they don't mention, but you're probably going to figure this out, when you're close to the bridge, you need a lot more pressure to get that same sound, right? You're going to need a lot more pulling to get the sound to sound really good. So creatively speaking, if you want your loudest, most powerful sound, as most of us know, you're going to need to be near the bridge and near the frog, right? This is where we get our most powerful sound. And what your goal really should be for this is to be able to play as close to the bridge as absolutely possible without the sound cracking. The best cello players in the world that have this biggest sound are able to play almost on the line between where it doesn't sound, it sounds bad, right? It's ponticello, this sound, and where they get this really excellent sound. So that's your heaviest sound. The opposite of that, if you wanted your absolute quietest sound, you would be at the tip and basically on the fingerboard. So the opposite of that is up here, right? On the fingerboard. This is what some people call flautando, just very, very, like, the sound almost doesn't exist there. So when you're playing or when you're thinking about pieces, you always want to be thinking about, and I'm sure your teachers talked about this, you always want to be thinking about where the bow is placed on the string, because that's going to completely change the sound based on where you put it. And that I call these the cello highway. And to me, there's 6 lanes, right? You've got one lane right on the fingerboard, and then another just below it. And I kind of think of them as dynamics, right? So pianissimo is right on the fingerboard, piano's a little bit lower, mezzo piano's a little bit lower, mezzo forte is middle lane, where many of us were taught to start, right in the middle. Right, another lane lower is forte, and then fortissimo, that's as close to the bridge as you can play. So you can actually try playing things or improvising in those different lanes to get an idea, because they really sound very different. Like if you play right up here on the fingerboard, it's just such a muted sound as compared to here, right? Those are very different sounds. So I encourage you to think about and experiment with playing in the different lanes of your cello. And another thing you can do as well that I really like for creative bow stuff is coming up with your own rhythms and then trying to play those rhythms in different parts of the bow. Because depending on where you are in the bow, you're going to get different sounds as well. So let's say you're playing triplets. We'll try some triplets on the D string, like right at the frog. I think I'm out of tune. Feeling a little pitchy. Okay, there we go. So we're gonna do triplets here. Right? Now try those same triplets in the middle of the bow. And then try those exact same triplets. Try to make them sound exactly the same at the tip. So if you've got really good control of your bow, those are going to sound virtually the same. But you may find at first that it's a lot quieter at the tip, right? And you need to kind of bring up your elbow a little bit to be able to get that sound. So that's something you can experiment with. Think of rhythms that you can play. Try playing them in all different parts of your bow. And the last thing I wanted to do just for fun is think about some of the sound effects that you can make with your bow. If you're sitting down to practice and you're kind of feeling a little bit unfocused but you want to have fun, I love to sit down and just kind of improvise with weird sounds. So some of the sounds you may be familiar with, some of them you may not have learned yet. One sound that I really like, these are kind of like Halloween sounds. So one sound that I really like is called col legno, and you're going to tap on the wood of your bow. So you can turn your bow over and you can tap your bow on all the strings. There's also kind of a half col legno where you use the wood as well as the hair, right? So you can turn your bow either away from you or towards you. And something that's kind of fun to try, so remember earlier we were doing that left hand hammering stuff? It can be fun to try Coligno mixed with your hammers, your hammer-ons. Calling you, that can be really fun. Another really fun thing, I don't know if you guys have tried this, is playing below the bridge, where you can get some super spooky sounds down here. Sometimes when I'm improvising, like if I'm playing with a band or something, these sounds are just really fun to add in as a sound effect. It's like guitarists always have, you know, an infinite array of pedals, and I played with pedals before, but the instrument itself, like the cello, has so many different sounds just kind of embedded in the instrument. I often like to use the instrument as a drum, right? You can lots of fun tapping. There's different sounds too, because the body of the instrument, if you tap on the front, you get kind of that woody sound, right? But the back sounds different. So I often use my cello as a percussion instrument. You can try tapping like this, like bongos. So I think that is all that I have thought about for today. Lots of other stuff we can explore. Before we stop for today, I just wanted to mention, some of you have mentioned that you're interested in the Cello Yoga program, which is the online course that I created for cellists to explore different ways to reduce tension and increase their creativity. So I just wanted to mention that if you came to the workshop today and you want to join our program, you're going to get like a really big discount. So I give like a 30% discount for people who have taken a workshop to join the online course. And with the online course, you get free access to these workshops. So I'm going to try to do more of them. You also get a free coaching with me, and you get my video library of cello yoga videos. So I have like over 25 videos of various different things you can do with your cello to reduce tension, lots of breathing exercises, as well as learning to creatively improvise. So if you're interested in that, just send me a message after the session, and we can talk more about that. So I wanted now just to open up the floor for questions, and it looks like there's some questions already in the chat. So I'm going to just take a look at those right now. And let's see what we've got. If you have a question, if you could put it in the chat, and then I will just ask you to unmute yourself. Okay, so Christine asks, how to maintain the circle when in fourth or fifth, all right, okay, yes, fourth or higher position. That's right, okay, yes, so the circle becomes a different thing when you're beyond fourth position. For sure, because we kind of get into almost into thumb territory, right? So if you're in the fourth position, this is fine. You can have your circle at the back and you're fine. Once you get into fifth, you have to kind of modify the circle a little bit. So what happens is that the thumb comes around the side. So there's sort of this area between the bottom of the fingerboard and where it meets the cello at the neck. So your thumb comes around the side, and then your circle is a little bit more like, it's not quite a circle, it's more an oval. I had a teacher describe this to me as, she called it the thumb jaw. So the idea is that your thumb is on the side of the cello, and then these fingers, they open and close. So it's not so much a circle at that point as it is kind of an opening and closing mouth. And you can see that my thumb, if I'm in, say, the seventh position, which means your first finger is on harmonic A, that's your highest position before you go into thumb, then my thumb is quite stretched out, but there's still a roundness in the thumb. We never want the thumb to be completely straight like this, right? So there's still kind of a little bit of a roundness right there. So you're just opening up the hand and letting the thumb come down. And yes, what you said about the elbow must come forward. It has to come forward, otherwise this is a really hard stretch. So it comes forward like that. So yeah, Christine, did that answer your question? Yes? Okay, great, awesome. And yeah, great. How to stop teeth clenching? Oh my goodness, yes. Teeth clenching, for sure. Okay, so there's something I like to do. It's weird. But yeah, like a lot of us have tension in our faces when we play. We make all these weird faces. It can be almost a joke, like to watch performers perform and see what they do with their faces. And a lot of the things that are happening in their face are creating a lot of tension, right? So teeth clenching. What I do is I drop my jaw a little bit, and I try to think about putting my tongue on the top of my mouth. It's a bit weird, but I try to put my tongue up at the top. And I find that helps a little bit. One thing you can do too, because this is all related to tension that builds in the jaw. So one thing I like to try and do when I'm playing, say you're playing long tones and you've got like jaw and neck tension, you can actually play and try moving your head back and forth like this with your mouth open. Like this. I know this is super weird, but it really can help. And then another thing I notice, okay, so when people are clenching their teeth, usually it's because they're tense, and most often I see this this tensing in the jaw when people are doing shifts into the higher positions. So something you can do, so what I usually see when people are shifting into higher positions, let's say you're going from C sharp here and you're going up to the wherever, up here. So usually people will move forward, right? So they come forward, their heads come down, their necks come down, and their shoulders come up. Now that's an extreme, but that usually is what's happening. Maybe you guys can try that with me. So play a C sharp or C or whatever, something in the lower position. Then we're gonna go up the string, and as you come up the string, we're gonna move forward and drop our heads. Like extreme slouch. Okay, so we're gonna try that. And really bring your neck down. Okay, so this is an example of what's tight and not good. We don't want to be doing this. Sometimes, occasionally, if we're getting into the music and really dramatic and maybe we're playing metal, we might do this. But generally speaking, we want to do what I call the yo-yo ma shift. Is the total opposite of what you just did. As you shift up, you are going to lean back. And it might feel really weird, but try that. Try leaning backwards instead of forwards. And if you want to get rid of that jaw tension, try opening your mouth at the same time and breathing. So I find when I shift up, I like to time my breathing, my exhale, for my shift up. So when I'm shifting up, I breathe out. So before the shift, I would inhale, breathe out, and relax backwards. Like that. And just let it go. Let it go. A lot of that tension is happening because we're doing this. We're like trying super hard. We don't want to try hard. We want it to be easy. So we're going to do this. And I strongly recommend you watch some videos of Yo-Yo Ma playing. His head is up in the sky. He's like this. There is no tension in his shifts whatsoever. Just very relaxed. But think about moving the head. I think with tension in the jaw, a lot of the time is because our head is everything's clenching. It's not just the jaw, it's the whole head and neck area. So you want to work with moving your head as you play. I think that will help. Anybody else have a question? Any other questions at all? Yes, Christy. Do you want to unmute yourself? You can ask.
Quick thing about the tension thing. I play with my tongue in between my teeth. So if I clench, I feel on my tongue.
Do you bite it?
Not if you're not clenching. If you're
good. Yeah.
Immediately, as soon as you start to do that with your jaw, you feel it immediately because your tongue is just likely there between your teeth.
Good. Yeah, no, that might be a good reminder. Yeah, to try and sort of move the tongue around. I'd be scared of biting my tongue, but we could try it for sure.
Yeah, you learn real quick. Don't clench.
Yeah, that's a good corrective situation there. For sure.
I struggle with that too. My question actually was about the pinky.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has this, but I have like really flexible fingers. My thumbs are like, they totally bend backwards. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But my pinkies, this last joint on my finger will lock sometimes, and I get like this weird bent last joint of my pinky, and curving my pinky and rounding it when I play has been really difficult. And I just wondered that micro shifting that you were talking about, if that, you were talking about how you had injured yourself before.
Yes.
With not curving the fingers enough and playing a lot with like repetitive strain injury.
Yeah.
And how and pinkies and ring fingers are actually attached to the nerves that go into your elbow. So
right. Yes. So when I injured myself, it was a pinky injury, but unfortunately it ended up going all the way up and it was tennis elbow by the time I was done. And it was really only 1 week of playing Popper studies did it. It was a study where you had to like repetitively put your fourth finger down. And I hadn't yet learned that if I just flapped my straight pinky on the string without any support, that is asking for trouble. Like, you never want to be flapping like this, especially with the thumb, like, you know, because at that time too, my thumb was always behind my first finger. So it's basically doing this, which is a terrible idea, right? So so the thumb, as much as you can get, whenever you're doing fourth finger, if you have heavy fourth finger stuff or fourth finger vibrato, you want to get the thumb much closer to the pinky because it does create a support for it. Obviously, you can't get it right underneath because that's not really, for most people, that's not where your thumb is going to fall, right? But if you can get it under the third, I find that's really helpful. It helps with the curl. I don't know if it's totally necessary to absolutely have to have this roundness in the pinky, but what you do want to make sure is that, again, it's not doing the pincer, right? So like the pincer is when the thumb is straight and the finger's straight, and that's going to create the most likelihood of injury. So yeah, I think the micro shifting, if you practice moving your thumb closer to your pinky when you play, that will help for sure. And I also think that exercise where you pull back on the strings with the four fingers, that also encourages that shape, the round shape. It can take some time because the pinky's just not very responsive. It's kind of flappy, right? And most people, our pinkies aren't super controlled. So anything where you're able to kind of pull back like this, that can be really helpful for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, I think that's good for today then. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the workshop. If you're interested in cello yoga, you can just get in touch with me. And yeah, it was great to work with you. I'll see you soon. Bye.